Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you all. So today we're going to be talking about the new ban list that got announced yesterday, or I guess very late the night before, depending on whatever time zone you're in. But yeah, the upcoming Forbidden and Limited list that is going to be hitting on October 10th. Now, I did actually already talk about this very extensively, not here on YouTube yet, but over on Twitch yesterday. The time this video is going up on that Friday, I talked about this. If you want to go ahead and check it out, I did put up the VOD. It's going to be linked in the description below my Twitch page. And you can also give a follow as long as you're there. It'll keep you up to date of when my streams drop. I have one coming up tomorrow on Sunday as well. So if you want some updates as far as the schedule goes, you can also follow me over on Twitter. Again, linked in the description below. But to kind of recap a lot of the things that I talked about over there, let's go ahead and actually show everything that's been Forbidden, Limited, and then otherwise lifted, and then I have it set up in the deck editor so we can actually look at the cards. But Forbidden is going to be Kelbeck, the Ancient Vanguard, as well as number 89, Diablosis, the Mind Hacker. As far as cards being limited, we have a couple. We have Nimble Beaver, as well as Tearlaments Havnis. And then the card switch limit on the number of copies will be lifted, so these cards are going to 3. Our Luster Pendulum, the Draco Slayer, number 75, Bamboozling Gossip Shadow, and then Adamancipator Analyzer. So, was definitely expecting a smaller ban list, and I would say we got one that's like smallish, like maybe more on the medium side, but let's go ahead and pop in here so we can see the actual cards themselves as we're talking about them. So let's start with the 2 cards that got banned. I want to talk first about Kelbeck, the Ancient Vanguard. This card is going from 1 copy down to 0, joining Agido, the Ancient Sentinel. So that's going to make both Ishizu Millers at 0 copies. You'll be completely banned in the game. And then the 2 Shufflers, which is going to be Keldo and... ooh, I'm blanking on the other one. It's Keldo and... oh my goodness, it's Agido? Mudora, yes, yeah, that's what it is. Okay, so Keldo and Mudora. The 2 Shufflers are going to be limited still, so... I'm pretty stoked about this ban, honestly. Although, to be fair, Kelbeck isn't really doing anything particularly unfair ever since, you know, Merle got banned and Tearlaments pretty much no longer exist. But at the same time, I think we can all agree that the Ishizu cards are just pretty absurd in what they do. And yeah, they were honestly just a mistake. I think we can all admit that. The Ishizu cards were a mistake. So... not too sad to see this one go to 0, especially because Kelbeck has so much utility, right? Like, not only does this, of course, serve most often as a Miller, sending the top 5 cards of each player's deck to the graveyard, but on top of that, like, you can special it from hand pretty easily to bounce monsters that get special summoned. It's pretty gross. Like, it's just a really, really good card. So, I'm not at all sad to see this card go to 0. It's interesting, this seems to be a hit mostly aimed towards Tearlaments, which is the biggest user of the Ishizu cards, including Kelbeck, and it's not the only way in which you see Tearlaments get hit. It does seem to me that Konami really wants the player base to kind of move on from Tearlaments and Sprites, a lot of the cards that have been meta for the past, like, you know, 6-ish months or so, and are really eager for us to, you know, try out some of the new stuff that's coming out. So... we'll talk about the other Tearlament hit here in a moment. But actually, speaking of new stuff that's coming out, the next hit to the ban list is actually going to be inspired by that. And it's one that I think a lot of us saw coming, right? Number 89, Diablosis, the Mind Hacker. So, this is a card that we're all probably familiar with by this point. You know, Kashtira in its current iteration with only the first wave of support is not really, honestly, that much of a meta contender. It is a solid rogue deck, but it's definitely not tiered in any respect. Still quite an annoying deck to play against, mostly because of this card. And when Kashtira gets the second wave of support, if this card were to still be legal, those zone locks would be a lot more common and a lot more deadly. Being able to potentially zone lock up to 5, you know, so that's all monster or spell trap zones on the first turn. Definitely not something a lot of players were looking forward to. So, you know, I was pretty confident they were going to ban Diablosis before the second wave of Kashtira hit. I was actually, I was talking about this on stream, right? So, there's a couple of reasons for that. A couple of hits that they've done in the past that kind of incline me to think this way. The first is the totally awesome hit we saw before Sprites came into the game, right? So, to me, I'm just thinking, right, like, if they're going to ban Totally Awesome so that Sprites can't have it, they would surely hit Diablosis for Kashtira, right? Because I feel like the Kashtira Diablosis interaction is a lot more devastating than the Sprite Totally Awesome interaction. Now, granted, Totally Awesome, especially with Sprite having, all of its stuff unlimited at the time, except for Starter, would be very strong. But I think that, Diablosis and Kashtira with full support is definitely on another level. And on top of that, they have definitely shown that they're willing to hit like combos that kind of lock you out of the game before they become a problem. They showed that when they banned Silva before the new Dark World support came out. That was the other pre-hit that they've done in the past that, I'm thinking about these hits and I'm like, I was pretty confident they were going to ban Diablosis. To be fair, a lot of people were. It's not like it was a hot take or anything, but, I'm just glad we're not going to have to deal with it, to be totally honest. So, those are the two banned cards. I am definitely thumbs up in favor of those. They are looking pretty good to me. Excuse me, sorry about that. So our next hit we're going to talk about is Nimble Beaver, going from 3 copies down to 1. I was not expecting this hit. And a lot of other people too, were probably expecting a hit to a certain elf, a certain sprite elf, right? Because this card is banned in both the TCG and OCG, and is also somehow still legal in Master Duel. I say somehow, but I was talking about this on stream, and I'd been thinking about this kind of like all day as I was thinking about the Nimble Beaver hit. Especially as I saw people saying, how does Sprite Elf still not get banned? It's such a generically powerful card. It's so good. It's gotta get hit. But here's the thing, right? I want you to really think about this for a moment. Besides Sprite and Tearlament, not even anymore because Merly is banned, so really, besides Sprite, what decks actually play Sprite Elf? It's funny, when I brought this question up in the stream, I believe it was Oni, which is a good friend of mine, and also a longtime viewer. I think a longtime viewer. I don't know. Maybe being presumptuous there. But anyway, Oni brought up a good point. They mentioned that if you go on Master Duel meta and look up decks that play Sprite Elf, if you go past all the Sprite variants, the next most common deck is Labyrinth. And it's like, how often do you see Sprite Elf, in Labyrinth, right? My point being that I don't think Elf is like necessarily as generically busted as a lot of people make it out to be. I think it was really just Tearlaments, besides Sprite, that were making very good use of Elf. And with Merly banned, I think that honestly frees up Elf to stick around. I don't necessarily disagree with the notion that maybe, I don't know, here's the thing too, right? I don't necessarily disagree with the Nimble Beaver to 1 hit, but it is also unnecessary at the same time, because again, if you look at the actual, like, not even just win rate, but also just usage rate of decks in the meta, both on tournament and ladder, like, in terms of usage rate, Sprite is like a tier 3 deck right now. Now, I, of course, am a known Sprite enjoyer, so I'm going to naturally be a little bit biased towards the deck, but I feel like Sprite, like, Pure Sprite and Tri-Sprite, and maybe even Runic Sprite too, I kind of feel like they're at tier 2 power level, but people are just not playing the deck that much. To me, the Nimble Beaver to 1 hit, actually both of these limits, but we'll talk about the other one in a moment, but to me, the Nimble Beaver to 1 hit kind of seems to be Konami's way of saying, alright, move on from Sprites, play something else, right? Particularly Pure Sprite, it kind of seems like they want us to move on from that iteration. Now, the other reason that people have speculated as to why Elf did not get hit is because Sprite Elf is actually important to an upcoming Sprite variant that I think is actually going to be, even before I knew about the Nimble Beaver limit, I thought this was going to be the best Sprite variant moving forward, and that's Gishki Sprite. So tomorrow's video is actually going to be about Gishki Sprite, and it was recorded at the time before the ban list dropped, so I talk a little bit about, like, oh, if Elf gets hit, this deck won't be around, but the deck does not play the Nimble engine. I didn't even include it before, Nimble Beaver went to 1, so no need to worry about that, and I think I talked about the Nimble engine a little bit and its potential use, but here's the other thing too that I've kind of noticed in the discourse about Nimble Beaver going to 1, right? A lot of people were saying, and this exact same thing came up when Swap Frog went to 1. There are a lot of people saying, ah shoot, Nimble Beaver went to 1. Now we gotta find a new level 2 engine, and I'm kind of the opinion that we don't necessarily need to. Like, I'm definitely going to try some iteration of Pure Sprite. It might be with a different level 2 engine after all. But here's the thing. Nimble Beaver to 1 does not kill the Nimble engine because, lest we forget, honestly, the star of the Nimble engine, in my opinion, isn't even the Beaver, it's the Angler. And, you know, sending Angler off of Sprint is definitely an interaction that can absolutely still happen moving forward. I could maybe even see a world, I'm not saying this is going to be correct, but it is something I think I will try. I could even see a world where we play like 3 Nimble Angler, not even necessarily because we want to open it and summon it, but, you know, maybe we can open it and play some more cards that can send it from hand to grave. Or you could even, like, just focus the line, right? So that when you're summoning Gigantic, you could maybe summon the swap and then bounce it back if you have the Angler in hand to just pitch the Angler, special the swap again, get another send, and then you also get the 2 Nimble monsters off the Angler. It doesn't have to be 2 Nimble Beaver. Everybody got 2 Nimble Beaver because that was the good thing to get, but I think a lot of people kind of... It seems to me, I don't know, it feels like people kind of have this idea of like, you can't summon 2 Nimble Beaver off of Angler. I guess you just can't play the Nimble engine. It's like, well, you can summon other Nimble monsters, right? Like, you could maybe do 3 Angler and 1 Beaver, maybe throw in like a Sunfish if you really wanted to. I don't know, but I don't know. I'm not saying that is going to be correct, but I do think that people are a little quick to write off the Nimble package in Sprite decks because, again, I just saw the same thing with Frogs, right? And it was the same thing with Frogs too, in that, you know, Swap Frog, people talked about how it went to 1 and then the engine would be unplayable, but the thing about Swap Frog is that you get it off of Gigantic, right? This is actually, I can even date this all the way back to when Adventure Phantom Knights got hit. When Fusion Destiny and Water Enchantress both went to 1, everybody wrote off Adventure Phantom Knights. They said it was too inconsistent. But I was sitting here like, what are you talking about? Like, you send the Water Enchantress and the Fusion Destiny from the deck to the graveyard off of the combo lines that you already do. Like, it doesn't matter if those cards are at 1, because you don't need to open them for them to be relevant. The same is true of Swap Frog. You do not need to open Swap Frog for it to be relevant. You can summon it off of Gigantic. Same is true of Nimble Beaver. You don't need to open Nimble Beaver for it to be relevant. You could summon it still with a different Nimble monster off of Angler. So, I think, again, these cards that go to 1, so people are so quick to write them off. But, honestly, they still have utility, and I think that should at the very least be considered. So that's kind of my whole spiel about Beaver. Obviously, again, noted Sprite enjoyer, so I have a lot of opinions about this card going to 1. But, yeah, and then I also have a lot of opinions about Elf as well. That was my other thing I was going to bring up. Yeah, I'll maintain that point. I'll maintain the point that with Tearlament not having Merly, Elf is not as generically useful as a lot of people claim it is. I think it's fine, honestly, because it's really only Sprite decks right now that are actually making use of it. So, again, just my 2 cents on the matter. But the other card that went to 1 is Tearlaments Havnis. Oh boy, I have some opinions about this one as well. Why is mainly my main opinion. This card did not need to get limited. Now, one thing I've seen, again, people say generally online in response to this card getting limited is that, oh, this makes sense because Tearlaments Kashtira is about to come out, so Tearlaments will get better, so we need to pre-hit them a little bit. I fully disagree with that notion. Here's the thing about Tearlaments Kashtira. For those who don't know, that is a new support card that's coming out. It does have both Tearlaments. Its name is just literally Tearlaments Kashtira. Like, it's not. I'm not like, you know, ad-libbing that at all. And here's the thing about it though. Although it is a Tearlaments monster, it's not a fuser. So here's like my whole stance on this. I've tried Tearlaments out a couple of times since when they got banned, both like a pure variant and more of like a punk variant, with the punk variant especially having a lot of emphasis on adding extra mills. Because I kind of had this idea that I think a lot of people had when it comes to Tearlaments, right? When Merly got banned, where, you know, my whole thought initially was, oh, we have 4 fusers instead of 6 now. So naturally, if I just put more ways to mill in the deck, we can hit those fusers more often, and maybe Tearlament is still fine. But it's not about the overall quantity of fusers, it's about the number that you can use per turn. With the 2 copies of the 6 both being Merly that are getting hit, that means you can only fusion summon twice per turn instead of 3 times, and that is huge. That's It's massive. Of course, the fact that Merly was level 2, again, is relevant in relation to Sprite, Elf, and Sprint. You no longer have a Link 2 that's very easy to make that is guaranteed to get you a fusion summon, nor do you have the ability to use Elf to recur the Merly, to get mills on the opponent's turn and make like your Soliac / Rolkalos more live, to send it to get another fusion. Like, it's just so many good interactions. Honestly, I've said it before, I'll keep saying it, the Merly ban was genius, frankly. None of us saw it coming, and I think it was a very good move on Konami's part, honestly. But anyway, my main point here is that Tearlaments Kashtira is not going to fix Tearlaments' problems, even if Havnis was still at 2, because all it does is mill more cards. It's not even an Aqua monster, like, it's a Psychic, so if you're using a Tearlament Fuser name to try to make Kiklos or Kaleido Heart, you can't do that with Tearlaments Kashtira. Tearlaments Kashtira literally just mills more cards, and that's not what Tearlaments needs. Tearlaments needs to be able to do more fusion summoning that they cannot do. In a lot of ways, like, the deck would be so much better off if all 3 fusers were at 1, as opposed to having even 2 Havnis with 2 Shiren, because again, there's always more ways to mill, there's only so many Tearlament fusers. So, I think the hit was honestly unnecessary. Tearlament's not doing anything now, and again, I don't think Tearlaments Kashtira would have boosted it to so much of a higher power level anyway. I'll still try Tearlaments when Tearlaments Kashtira comes out, but I'm not feeling it, honestly. I don't think it's there. And finally, let's go ahead and wrap up by talking about the 3 unbans. Only 3, there could be a lot more. This is actually what we spent the majority of the stream talking about. I went through the whole ban list with chat and talked about like every card that could come off or every card that should stay on. And there are a lot of cards on the ban list that could come to like 3, or some ban cards that could come to 1, and the game would honestly be completely fine. And we're seeing at least 3 of those cards coming back now. Luster, Pendulum, the Draco Slayer. This was a limit from like not even Master Rule 4, but like Master Rule 3 that I don't think ever got reversed. I don't know why this card was at 1, 2? I think it was at 1. I have no idea why this card was at 1 for as long as it was. It could have come back a long time ago and would have been completely fine. And yeah, will continue to be completely fine as it is at 3. Number 75, Bamboozling Gossip Shadow. This could have come back the exact same list Rongo got banned, but I guess they just wanted to see for like a month if anyone would cook anything gross with it. And turns out, no, there's not really anything super gross you can do with Gossip Shadow. Besides Rongo being ads, so this card is completely fine to come back to 3, and it is in fact coming back to 3. And finally, Adamantipator Analyzer. I mean, yeah. It's like, yeah, we have fucking Block Dragon banned. This is the other thing too. Oh my god, I got into this during this. I don't mean to talk about the stream so much. I just did it like, you know, right before recording this video, which is why I'm still thinking about it. But one thing I got into a little bit. And I've said this before on the channel, this isn't anything new, but I do think Block Dragon deserved to get banned, but only because Adamantipator was going to get a lot better when Super Heavy Samurai comes out. If you go back and look at the entire time Block Dragon was at 1, Block Dragon at 3 was too much. That was way too much, I will freely admit that. That was too many Block Dragons. But if you look at like the entirety of the time Block Dragon was at 1, the deck was totally fine. The deck was like never better than tier 3. It barely ever put up tournament results. And honestly, especially as time went on, like think about the last like month or 2 that Block Dragon was legal, you never saw that deck. You just never saw that deck on ladder. Really, as soon as Tearlament like came out and was like tier 0, like you just stopped seeing Adamantipator pretty much entirely altogether on ladder. I know a lot of people don't like Block Dragon, it limits card design, etc., but like, again, I think it deserves to get banned only because of the Super Heavy Samurai cards that are going to come out and would have made that deck a lot better. I think if, again, you look at the entire time, Block Dragon was at 1, Adamanticipators were fine and not a problem. I know that's a very hot take, but I don't know. At the same time, it's like, a lot of the issues that people have with Adamantipator is how long the combos take, and that's not that deck's fault. That's definitely like Konami just not doing excavating well enough. Like they need to, like, beyond even just speeding up the animation, like somebody in chat actually said this pretty well. They should just fan them out, right? They should just show you all 5 at once for a moment and then fan them back. And if you need to see them again, you can just open the side, you know, log there, but anyway, that's like my one more hot take I guess I had to get out before I ended this video off here. So that's everything I want to talk about the new ban list. Hope you all enjoyed the content. Like I said, tomorrow we're going to talk about Gishki Sprite and prepare for, that new Sprite variant. So let's just go ahead and move now to our outro. Alright everybody, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you for watching it all the way to the very end. That means a whole lot to me, and it's also a fantastic way to support the channel. And if you're interested in supporting the channel in other ways besides YouTube, there are plenty of ways to do that. If you check out the description below, you'll find a bunch of links down there. One of them goes to my Patreon. You're actually seeing the names of everyone subscribed to the Patreon on the screen right now. So if you're interested in getting your name in the credits here at the end, if you want to see more daily Master Duel content, or if you're interested in one-on-one private coaching sessions, I offer all of that on Patreon. I also stream live on Twitch. Feel free to go ahead and click that link and follow and or subscribe there. I also have the Discord community, if you want to follow that link, where hundreds of duelists have already signed up. Free to join, and you can just come hang out, talk about the game, and chill in general. Final link that's going to be in the description is my Twitter. You can follow that if you want some more notifications of what's happening with the channel. So all in all, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.